Okay, we'll move on to the third myth, which is spread by the sword. Okay, this is just a surah that's also very popular between Muslims that many Muslims have memorized. Say, O disbelievers, I do not worship what you worship, nor you worshiper of what I worship. Nor will I be a worshiper of what you worship, nor will you be worshippers of what I worship. For you is your religion, for me is my religion. Holy Quran. This is just another ayat. There is no compulsion in religion. Verily, the right path has become distinct from the wrong path. Whoever disbelieves in taghut, false gods, false worship, idols essentially, and believes in Allah, then he has grasped the most trustworthy handhold that will never break. And Allah is all here, all knower. And here's some other ayat and so forth concerning war and peace and the great religion of Islam. Okay, and fight in the cause of Allah against those who wage war against you, but do not commit aggression, for verily Allah does not love their aggressors. But if they incline to peace, incline thou to it as well, and place thy trust in Allah. Verily He alone is all hearing, all knowing. As for such as do not fight against you on account of your faith, and neither drive you forth from our homelands, Allah does not forbid you to show them kindness and to behave towards them with full equity. For verily Allah loves those who act equitably. Here's Surah An-Nasr. When the victory of Allah has come, and the conquest, and you see the people entering into the religion of Allah in multitudes, and exalt Him with praise of your Lord, and ask forgiveness of Him. Indeed, He is ever accepting repentance. And this was revealed to Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam before the conquest of Mecca, because Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was, that means peace be upon him, Muhammad peace be upon him, was driven out of Mecca, and then even after he got driven out of Mecca, the polytheists of Mecca continued to attack him in Medina, with the city he took refuge from, and so forth. However, then, as fate would have it, by the will of God, Muhammad took Mecca back, and with his passing away, within a very short time period, Islam spread from a very remote region in Saudi Arabia to encompass an area from Spain all the way from Central Asia into India, which many historians marveled at the rapidity, the very fastness, and the velocity of the spread of Islam. And as well as the material wealth, because at this time the Arabs were very materially, they didn't have any material capabilities really. They came from the desert, which is really a hazardous wasteland. They don't have many natural resources, very small in number, etc. And this was during the time when there was the Persian Empire to the east and the Byzantine Empire to the west that just dominated the region. Okay, so yeah. And moving on. Okay, and this is some more ayah on Islam regarding war and peace, etc. And do not allow your oaths in the name of Allah become an obstacle to virtue and God consciousness and the promotion of peace between men. For Allah is all hearing, all knowing. Unless it be such of them as have ties with people to whom you yourselves are bound by a covenant, or such as come unto you because their hearts shrink from the thought of making war either on you or their own folk. Although if Allah had willed to make them stronger than you, they would certainly have made war on you. Thus, if they let you be and do not make war on you and offer peace, Allah does not allow you to harm them. Now here is John L. Epicito, who's kind of like the really a demanding voice, very commanding voice on the subject right now of Middle Eastern relations and so forth. This book I actually got from a textbook in my Islam and Politics class here at the University of Utah. So when he was talking about the initial spread of Islam from this, like I said, miraculously very fast spread of Islam, and after the Prophet Muhammad's death in 633 AD, he's quoted as saying, Muslim armies proved to be formidable conquerors and effective rulers, builders rather than destroyers. They replaced the indigenous rulers and armies of the conquered countries, but preserved much of their government, bureaucracy, and culture. For many in the conquered territories, it was no more than an exchange of masters, one that brought peace to peoples demoralized and disaffected by the casualties and heavy taxation that resulted from the years of Byzantine-Persian warfare. Continue. In many ways, local populations found Muslim rule more flexible and tolerant than that of Byzantium and Persia. Religious communities were free to practice their religion, to worship and be governed by their religious leaders, and laws in such areas as marriage, divorce, and inheritance. Continued. In exchange, they were required to pay a poll tax, which was called the jizya, that entitled them to Muslim protection from outside aggression and exempted them from military service. They were called the protected ones, the dhimmi. So my Arabic's not the best. I'm not an Arabic speaker, so. Okay, so the aspect of Islam, which is a core part of the Islamic judicial system, called Sharia law, guarantees that non-Muslims will get the right to worship as they so please, as long as they pay a small tax called the jizya, and they're exempted from military service, and they receive protection from Muslim armies. And but at the same coin, or at the same time, Muslims as well have to pay a tax called the zakat, which is mandatory for all Muslims to pay to the poor and needy. So that is, everybody that's living under Muslim rule gets taxed equally, however, under different circumstances. One the jizya, one the zakat. Continue with more ayah about war and peace in Islam. O you who have obtained to faith, when you go forth to war in the cause of Allah, use your discernment, and do not, out of desire for the fleeting gains of this worldly life, say unto anyone who offers you the greetings of peace, thou art not a believer, for with Allah there are gains abundant. You too were once in the same condition. Allah has been gracious unto you. Use therefore your discernment. Verily Allah is always aware of what you do. Okay, here's some discernible evidence for today. Religious communities predating Islamic rule that exists today in this region where Islam spread very fast by conquering, etc. Around 10% of Egypt is Coptic Christians, and these Christians have existed well before Muslims came to Egypt, as well as 20 to 30% of Lebanese, which are Maronite Christians, 20% of Palestinians, Christian. There are also sizable minority Christians and Jewish populations throughout the Middle East, in every country, and they've been there for a very long time, through hundreds, if not thousands, like over 1,000 years of Islamic rule, as well as Hindus, Buddhists, and Sikhs, and other lands where Muslims have ruled for a very long time. And so this is for the initial spread, and this is kind of in the Middle Eastern area, North African, Spain, Central Asia region. However, and this had to do with a little bit of conquering, etc. But there was also a vast majority, or over 50%, let's say, of Muslims who came to Islam through missionaries, or not necessarily missionaries, but through missionary work, through meeting with the Muslims as merchants, etc. In Indonesia, Malaysia, Bangladesh, etc. Here is a quote from Richard W. Boulier, who wrote the book Islamic Christian Civilization. The contrast in wealth and material power that had so much favored the Muslims before the 16th century undeniably grew to favor the Western Christians. Perhaps there is another way of looking at things. Suppose instead of inquiring about imperial riches, one were to ask what percentage of the world Muslim community today is composed of descendants of people converted to Islam between 1500 and 1900. The answer would surely exceed 50%. Pretty much all of Bangladesh, Malaysia, and Indonesia, enormous groups of sub-Saharan Africans, most of the Muslims of Pakistan, India, and China, substantial populations of southeastern Europe and Central Asia. These were all spread after this time period, when the Muslims were not as powerful as before. And here, once again, I'll just recite, and I like this ayat a lot. There is no compulsion in religion. Verily, the right path has become distinct from the wrong path. Whoever disbelieves in Tawhid and believes in Allah, then he has grasped the most trustworthy handhold that will never break. And Allah is all here, all knowing. Thank you very much.